Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Iconiq Studios sort of TB League Street Fighter V Champion Edition RYU. This is the first of their new line of figures. They've already shown off Ken. RYU sold out already as far as I can tell. Nobody has them available, and the studio said that they are sold out. So I guess that's it. They said, I understand that they have said that they are not making any more RYUs. Ever, which is interesting to me because I'm guessing they'd be able to sell more, so I'm guessing they'll figure out a way to make more. But as of right now, this is no longer purchasable anywhere other than secondhand, and so it's kind of pointless to review it. So that's the end of the video. No, we're gonna go ahead and review it because it's a very unique figure. It's one that I was very interested in, but also didn't buy because I don't collect this scale, and they didn't want to send me a review sample apparently. So I got it from my brother. I borrowed it from him, and so we're gonna review it. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Now, real quick, before we get into the review, this is what the main outer box looks like, but it also is a bunch of flaps that turn into... I just want to get this out of the way, because it's kind of an accessory, a big RYU diorama, which I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some rich people out there who's got, like, enough space for this sort of thing. It's awesome. Like, as far as cardboard diorama backdrops go for action figures, this is the best one I've seen. It's awesome, but it's freaking huge. So we're just gonna set that aside. It does magnet onto the main box where all of his parts go. All right, so let's get the guy back on camera and let's get into it. This guy stands, I get to use my blue ruler because he is almost exactly 12 inches, which is pretty cool. And that's gonna make him about 30.5 centimeters. So he's got the right size if he's supposed to be 6 feet, which he's not, so scaling's a little bit weird, just for the sake of it, because we always do. Here he is up against a Marvel Legends Darwin. They are not the same scale, so it's kind of pointless. And then here he is up against, because you guys might want to see this, I thought. I'm going to be reviewing this guy too. I've already reviewed the other ninjas. The Storm Collectibles 12-inch Noob Cybot. He is just a touch shorter than RYU if you count RYU's hair. Otherwise, they are about the same. He's a little bit smaller, I guess, maybe. But he's definitely not the same style. Storm went with a very realistic look, sort of. And then RYU is, of course, chunky as hell because he's a Street Fighter character from Street Fighter V. So scaling is questionable if you care about that sort of thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into a question of the day before we do the aesthetic. How do you guys feel about these silicone bodies? Not just this figure and this line, but any of the companies that do them. TB League probably does them the best, as far as I can tell. I don't collect them, but I do pay attention online. And so this is obviously a good chance at being a good figure. It has a good chance. But I'm generally not a fan of the silicone bodies, and I'll get into why as we go through the review. Obviously, there are benefits. There's no seams for the articulation anywhere. But then there will be very big seams if it tears, and you'll have other problems, which we'll get into. So I'm not generally a fan. For me, I'm buying an action figure. I don't care if it looks like an action figure. I don't mind seeing plastic and joint lines. So that's my take on it. You guys let me know in the comment section below. Okay, let's talk about the aesthetic. First things first, he does have all cloth for his outfit, except for the gloves and his headband, the main part that's on his head. And then the body is silicone, and then obviously, like I said, the gloves are going to be plastic, and so is the headband. And it all looks really good. It works fine together. I don't mind the mixing of materials. It's not a problem for me. I think it looks okay. The way they've done the plastic gloves, because of the material these gloves would be made out of in real life, it doesn't detract from the fact that he's got cloth, so that's a good thing. They did do a really good job with the details on the belt. I'll zoom in on that so you can see. It looks like real embroidery, because it is, and that's pretty cool. I like that. The sculpt on the face is probably the best RYU action figure head sculpt ever. I can't think of another one that looks better than this anywhere, ever. None of them. They all don't look as good as this. This looks awesome, so I'm very pleased about that. I will say the paint job is also really well done. Some very subtle shading in there. Not a ton, but you can see it. The mouth is done pretty well. They maybe went a little heavy with that line on the mouth, but you wouldn't see that in real life. You don't notice it. And then the eyes look really good, and the eyebrows and headband. They're all painted nicely, and the hair does have some highlighting in there. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Talk about sculpt a little bit more. The sculpt on the silicone body is very nice. It's really, really nice. You can see the musculature is very good. It's relatively well detailed. I like that. He is appropriately chunky and he has the right build. It's appropriately stocky, very muscular, and they did a good job with the muscles. Here's the downside. I do believe this can come off. You can take his gi off, but you have to untie his belt, and it is wired at least a little bit in here, and I'm not messing with it because it's not mine. I don't want to risk ruining it. I do believe if you have one of these, you can risk that for yourself, and you should be able to get it off. I was able to peel the clothing away a little bit, and he does have his muscles in there, and it's very well detailed, and they did a good job with that. So I do like the sculpt. That's wonderful. Now, as far as the clothing goes, I do think the main part of his gi looks pretty good. You get a little bit away from the detailed fraying on this side. It's probably just because it's actually fraying material. So that's a little questionable. How long is that going to last through handling and posing? It'll probably be okay, but who knows? Again, the belt is wired. That's awesome. For the pants, same material as the top. They are frayed at the bottom, but they have pleated knees. And I hate that. I hate that a bunch. It destroys the look of him, if you ask me. I'm guessing they did that to avoid it looking too bland, but they're just white pants. They should look bland. They shouldn't look pleated, unless I'm crazy and missing something from Street Fighter V, but every time I've played it, I don't remember noticing pleats in his pants. So that is a bit of a disappointment for me. And then the last thing, well, there's two more things. The last big thing I want to talk about that is a huge detraction for me is that the way they did the ankles is absolutely horrible in every single way I can think of. The silicone legs come down to the top of the foot, obviously, and then the feet are plastic. They couldn't make them silicone, I understand that, but the way they decided to separate these two parts is just atrocious. It's not well hidden at all, and this is a very, 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 very soft silicone, so they could have easily had the foot come up, have a much deeper curve cut out of it, and that way it would hide it much better. The seam would be a little higher on the foot from the side, but from the front you wouldn't even really notice it, and it would also help to hold it in place a little bit better because these feet, they don't really stay in place on their ball pegs. So that's a little bit of a bothering issue for me. It's actually a big issue. I hate the ankles. They look horrible. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to mention, the headband is wired also, and I love the way they did that. It looks wonderful. Couldn't ask for anything better on that. So aesthetically speaking, I am overall very pleased. Oh shoot, I forgot there's another thing I have to mention. Well, kind of two. Kind of three actually. All right, so just dive into it real quick. The skin tone is really nice. The molded silicone is very nice. There's no shading throughout though, the entire body, all the arms and chest. There's no shading on it because you can't really paint silicone. There are ways, but they didn't choose to do that, and that's okay. They did paint the fingernails and toenails. I just wanted to throw that out there. But here's the thing I almost forgot to mention. This white stuff, let me get in even closer. The white fuzz that you see, it's not dust. That is what I can guess is plasticizers coming out of the silicone. You can wipe them away, but they're going to come back. They're going to keep coming back. And I know it's not dust. The figure just came out. My brother isn't that dusty. And it's only in the creases. It's only noticeable in the creases. I don't know if it's going to show up that well. But you can see in almost every crease, there's white dust. Or at least what looks like white dust. And like I said, yeah, you can wipe it away, but that blows. And it's probably going to keep doing that. And that does worry me because if that's going to happen, what else is going to happen to this silicone? They did make it nice and thick. We'll talk about this more in the articulation. It's very thick, so it's not as likely to tear, but it could. And we've seen that recently, as recent as that, what was it, Imagination Works Goku, is that what it was called? Silicone bodies do have a tendency to tear and break down over time. And if this one's already leaching plasticizers, that is worrisome. I do also want to mention there are a few more than I would be happy to accept blemishes in the silicone. You can see one right there. You can actually see a line going down right there. That's not part of the sculpt. And then again on his chest, there's another one of those lines going vertically right there. Obviously they're not huge deals, but these are relatively expensive figures. What are they, like 270, something like that? I'll check. 280? I'll check and put it on there. But it looks really good overall, but it definitely has a few shortcomings, which will probably be worked out by the time Ken releases. That's why it's a little bit unfortunate that they said they're never going to release another RYU ever again, or at least not this one. So we'll see. But aesthetically speaking, I'm going to go 8 out of 10. It does look really good, definitely some room for improvement. Now, as far as accessories go, you get the 2 heads. You get the normal stern head, and then you get the teeth-gritted angry head looking off to the side. Very specific poses, but since in Street Fighter you're almost always looking at him from, like, he's looking off to the side, that's okay. You get a bunch of hands, the 2 fist hands, a set of Hadoken hands, which are molded together, and then you get hands for everything else, all the different hands that you could want. You do get the 2 normal feet, and then you get a set of feet for him to be up on his toes, or more realistically, you just use one of these, but you do get that. You do get his fireball, which comes with an acrylic display stand, which is a very, very, very basic display, which is okay, but it does fall apart. Fireball looks pretty good. You do not have any hands molded into the fireball, which you can argue if you want those or not. And then also the fireball isn't very blue. It's more of like a turquoise aqua color. I'd say aqua. Again, you can argue whether that's accurate or not, but that is the way it looks. He does get his duffel bag or gym bag, whatever you want to call it. That looks pretty good. It's pretty well done. I like that. And then lastly, you get a display stand with a decent base and a wired thing for holding him up, which is stiff enough to hold him up. So that's a pretty good spread of accessories, and I'll give the accessories in terms of quantity and quality 9 out of 10. It's pretty good. Now, the reason it's not getting a higher score is the hands and feet are ridiculously hard to swap out. I would not recommend you do it without warming them with a hairdryer first, especially the feet. The balls, the stainless steel balls, are very large compared to the hole, and that can be a good thing, but in this case it's not, because you're handling a silicone figure and the steel skeleton inside is not connected to that at all. So you could easily just rip this figure apart, literally, as you're trying to peg in overly tight accessory hands and feet. So do be very, very careful about that. The instruction sheet that comes with this figure does warn you about overbending the joints and pressing things against other things. You can poke right through the silicone, it says, and having a hand that requires you to bend the elbow to get it on, you're risking pushing that elbow right through the skin. And same thing with the knees, for the ankles. It's very troublesome, so do be very, very careful when swapping out those parts. Okay, good spread though, so I do like that. Now, as far as articulation goes, all I can do is kind of guess what's going on in here. It does appear to be lots of double ball pegs, like everywhere, and that's fine because it's a stainless steel skeleton and the joints are all pretty stiff, so that's a good thing. The head is on a ball peg. It swaps out relatively easily. A little hairdryer action wouldn't hurt, but there does appear to be also a ball peg down here to allow the neck to move. Moving forward and back does work, which is awesome. I love that. Like I said, as far as silicone bodies go, these guys are probably the best in the game. Lean side to side very nicely. As far as moving the head around on the ball peg itself, you can do it, but there's not a ton of range because it's a relatively small ball peg, but you can do it, so that's pretty good. Rotation does work, and it's probably going to twist the silicone a little bit, and that's okay because it makes it look more natural, but love that. The neck to head region is very good. Very, very pleased with that. I love it. That's really nice. Now the shoulders, you're probably thinking, how the heck does that work? It's a big chunky shoulder, big chunky under the arm area. How the heck does that range work? Well, I don't know for sure. I know it goes out that far and that far down. Goes out to the side, no problem at all. Can it keep going up? It can. It does start to pull down, but you can see also we do start to get a little bit of stretching going on here, which is mildly concerning. Can we focus, please? It looks like, it doesn't look like it's about to tear, but it looks like it could. So I'm a little bit concerned with stretching that any higher, but you wouldn't need to. You wouldn't need to put it out to the side any higher than that anyway, so that's okay. But you would need to swing it forward and up for the Dragon Punch, the Shoryuken. And can it do that? Well, I don't know. It's weird because I don't know if the skeleton can rotate inside. It should be able to, and if it can, then that will allow it to work. If it can't, then I don't know. That's as far as I feel comfortable moving it based on what it feels like, not even because it's not mine. That feels like any more, and I'm going to start tearing down here. And it also starts to feel, I can feel resistance from the silicone pulling the arm back down. So I know they've posed it like that. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable moving it any more than that. So the Shoryu, you're not going to be able to get a proper Shoryu out of him as far as I can tell. That feels really iffy, and for an expensive figure that maybe can't get replacement parts, very concerning. I wouldn't risk doing it anymore. The muscles do bunch pretty well. It's very, very soft silicone, but it is concerning. Okay, now as far as the bicep swivel goes, the only way you can test that on a figure like this is to bend the elbow and rotate it, which it does work. So you do have a bicep swivel in there. That's a good thing. No problem there. Elbow joint, obviously it can go straight, and it looks fine when it's straight. Except they didn't put much of an elbow here. There's no actual sculpted elbow, it's kind of flat. And the reason that's somewhat of a problem, by the way, there's a black chunk of something in the silicone there. The reason that's a problem is when you do bend the elbow, not that you're supposed to bend it a lot because it's risky, is he gets a really, really stretched out flat looking elbow rather than having the extra hump of an elbow on there. So you can bend it, but I wouldn't bend it any tighter than that. It does work pretty well though, and it doesn't look too goofy. For the wrists, it's a tiny double ball peg that's only one of the balls is sticking out, but there's one inside the silicone, and there's not a whole lot of motion. I mean, you can't do anything with the double ball pegs really because of how, I mean, this is all just solid plastic, and this is, like, the ball's all the way over here. So this goes back way too far to really be useful for anything other than rotation. As you can see, it's kind of cool that because of the plastic sticking out farther, it does kind of grab that silicone, so when you twist it, it kind of makes it more of a natural thing. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's kind of cool, and if you don't want to do that, you can just kind of wiggle it around and get it to work. But again, very difficult to swap the hands out because I'll show you real quick, just as you would be doing it, you can see how squishy and wiggly this is. So as you're trying to move the hands around, you have a good chance of not having a good grip on the figure. It's basically impossible. So you kind of have to bend the elbow to give yourself something to push against, but then you're pushing potentially the elbow, the metal elbow, right through the silicone. So that's very, very risky. Now before we move down to the lower half, I do want to talk about potential butterfly range of motion. You can bring the arms forward pretty well, like really well, considering they start out back here, and you can bring them forward and squish the chest pretty nicely, but there is some resistance. They're just pushing back against the chest because the pecs are pretty big and the arms are pretty big, and so the silicone is, even though it's soft, it's still too much material for the muscles to squish properly. You can see it did squish his chest some, but it's not going to be that much. I think, if I had to guess, I think that's why they gave us a set of hands where they can't pull apart. They are connected to each other, so if you want to put them in that pose, you have to use these hands and then it'll work. But you saw it was fighting back. And just from doing that, let's zoom in on the chest here. It did give us, like, it kind of clumped up that white stuff that was in there a little bit. So that's kind of annoying. Yeah, definitely some issues with the silicone body. Okay, so there is torso articulation. We'll move the arms out to the side for that T-pose a little bit here. We will lean him back, not using the hips. That's as far as I can get him to lean back, not using the neck or the hips, which is not bad. I'll take that, that's fine. And then leaning forward. We have a lot of meat here. That seems to be as far as he can lean forward without using the hips. And then we'll try to get him back and go side to side. It's in there, but he's pretty chunky. I mean, there's a lot of meat there, so you're not going to get a ton of range. And then as far as rotation goes, again, it's in there. Let's not get in the way. That's about as much rotation as you're going to get. So, not a ton. One thing that's good about this is the figure overall is that they did sculpt all of the muscles and everything where they're supposed to be. So that's nice. It makes him look good in his clothes, but it does get in the way of articulation. There's no, like, thin spots to allow for posing, so be aware of that. Now, as far as the hips go, let's just bring them forward as far as they can go. It looks like that's about it, which is not impressive. The silicone and the pants are fighting. You can see the muscles in there. That's good. You can see, like, the quads sculpted in there. But he can't bring his leg very far forward. Going back. That's about as far back as he can go. So, I think if you're going to sculpt the body fully naturally, like all the muscle groups where they belong, you need to have much, much stiffer joints. Going out to the side, it's actually relatively loose, and then the pants get in the way a little bit. And because the silicone is kind of like it's not sticky, but it's not smooth. How should I describe it? There's going to be friction from the pants on the meat. So they don't slide up as much as you would like. So making him do the splits is very difficult, and it looks like that's about the best range you're going to get. So again, his articulation is severely limited. The knees bend really well. Can't go farther than that. The silicone is pushing it back down, so just better than 90 degrees. Is there a thigh swivel? Can't tell because the knees are just ball pegs as far as I can tell. So I can't test the thigh technically for swivels because the meat just squishes around. But you do get about 90 out of the knees. And then for the ankles. Oh, what hideous, hideous things. And they rotate like this way too easily. Oh man, and you can see them. And I do think they are... I was gonna say, I think they're double ball pegs like the wrist, but it almost feels like it's just a single. And you just get this motion, this amount of range, which is garbage. So the ankles suck. Overall, the articulation is unimpressive. The neck is good. The neck is wonderful. The arms work well enough, but it's not good enough overall. Not for the price point, not for this being some big fancy figure, which it is. I mean, it is technically a big fancy figure, but is it worth having the silicone body if you can't pose it? Well, that's a personal choice, I guess. I know many people who collect this scale don't pose their figures very much. In which case, I don't know that... I mean, it's an action figure. So why? I'm curious. That'll be another question of the day. If you collect this scale and don't pose your figures, why do you want action figures instead of statues? Seems strange to me. So yeah, I'm going to rate the articulation like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Some of it's good for what it is, but most of it's not. The neck is great, arms are okay, legs are horrible, torso's only okay. So posing this guy is not going to be fun. It's a pain in the ass to handle him because everything is just so squishy wiggly, twisty. Because it's not connected to the skeleton at all, it's very annoying. Just look at that. Zero resistance. It's very, very annoying to handle this thing, and I'm terrified I'm going to tear it or ruin it in some way. Not because it's not mine, because I would feel that way if it was mine too, but definitely because it's not mine, because I'm just borrowing it. I don't feel comfortable really posing this guy, even though I showed you the ranges. They're not good enough, and it's not safe enough. There's just too many problems. Hopefully they can get them worked out, but I don't know. A lot of issues here. So, okay, time for the final verdict. Looks great in a lot of ways. Not all the ways. Lots of accessories. Definitely some pitfalls. Obviously, posing is one of them. Swapping out the parts is another one. And then longevity. Potentially a problem with tearing or plasticizers leaching out. Or who knows what. Loose joints. There's no way to say for sure. I don't know exactly how they're engineered. Stainless steel is great. There's friction in the joints. Will that make them loose over time? I don't know. They're already not that tight. So there's a lot to wonder about this line. Especially at the price point. Is it worth it? I don't know. There's a lot to like though. So I'm going to give it an overall rating of 7 out of 10. If you don't mind the problems, it's going to be good enough. If you don't like the problems, then you're not going to be interested in it in the first place like me. At a scale I don't really collect, there's just too much that I don't care for me to get into it. If it was some kind of impressive, crazy thing, then I would be like, yeah, sure, I'll get a 12-inch RYU, because why not? But nah, some wiggly, jiggly meat on a stick is basically what this is, with a really nice sculpt. Whoever sculpted it did a great job. But honestly, just too many problems for my liking. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That was a really long video, so thanks for sticking around. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.